Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to my next video. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be taking a look at President Joe Biden's approval ratings and seeing how, there had over the past couple of weeks there, has been something interesting happening with Biden's approval. So if you haven't been following along for, with Biden's approval, I don't blame you, but Biden is right now very, very unpopular. He is, at this point in Donald Trump's presidency, he was more popular than Biden. Same with Obama. Same with Bush. Of course, this was towards the 9/11. This was after 9/11 at that time in his presidency. Bill Clinton. You have to go all the way back pretty much to um to Harry Truman to see where Biden's approval or his net approval, I mean, in this case, it'd be net disapproval, but it's negative 15.2 right now. Or excuse me, not negative, it's negative 13.6. You'd have to go back to Harry Truman to find a president with a lower approval rating at this point in their tenure in the White House. And, this is including one termers and two termers, all presidents after World War II. So, Biden has been disapproved of for pretty much about a year now. It depends on what you're looking at. Excuse me, I just need to go over here. So yeah, Biden has been, like most presidents, Biden started out with a pretty high approval rating, and it pretty much stayed there for a while until around the time of August 2021, about a year ago, when the U.S. was starting to pull out of Afghanistan. And the public took notice to that, and they were, they blamed Biden for the cruelty of the withdrawal. That's just me, saying that. I'm not going to offer my personal opinion as of right now. But basically, by the end of August, according to this 538 forecast, on August 30th, 2021, Biden was disapproved of for the first time in his presidency, and he has not recovered since. And on election day of 2021, Biden was down 8 points. Of course, Glenn Youngkin won the Virginia governor's race. Phil Murphy almost lost his governor's race in New Jersey to a Jack Ciattarelli. And this was pretty much the low point for Democrats. And, it looked like this was really, the big indicator where, there was no denying it anymore. The 2022 was going to be a red wave year. And, it took me a little while to get on that idea, but, after seeing what happened on election night and seeing what state the Democratic Party was in, I had even started to predict a red wave even beforehand, but it was pretty much um, undeniable at this point that Democrats are going to do pretty badly in the midterms, whether it was the House or the Senate, especially in the House, which they I believe that it was going to be very hard for Democrats to keep control of the House before this, but the Senate was more of a silver lining. But after this, I thought the Senate might not even be attainable at this point, and so it pretty much stayed this way for well, I mean, Biden's approval rating has been underwater for a while. At this point, at this point, there was a bit of a resurgence on December 17th, 2021. I remember LTE made a video about this. I'm a big follower of LTE, so I see a lot of his content. I kind of echo some of it, but I'm my own brand. And it was at this point, Biden was, according to the 538 polling average, was only down by 6.6%, or that his net approval was negative 6.6%. Let's go back to see what Real Clear Politics was like. Actually, that's the generic ballot. Excuse me. Um, what the heck? Okay, I guess they just refreshed the page. So as you can see, let me try to get it. So as you can see, Real Clear Politics, which does lean more rightward than 538, actually had Biden, the disapproval net actually, um, it was actually hot. It was actually lower. It was 6.2%. Not a big difference. So let's look at where Biden is right now. I'm sorry, I got quite a few tabs open, so yeah. So, Biden's approval rating kind of, stayed at where it was for a while. it started to tick up, got into the double digits, by January of this year, and it had pretty much found its spot, and there had been some points where it was getting lower and going up. It was pretty infrequent, but that's what happens with polling data. But it really started to go up, his approval rating really started to collapse towards the summer months, especially in July when he actually dipped below 30%, and he had not been able to come back from this for a while. In fact, just about a month ago, he was disapproved of, let's see if we can find it, by almost 20 points. It was 19.7 his net approval was negative 19.7%, as you can see. Almost a 20 uh, almost a 20% difference. And, Democrats have been able to hold their own in, the generic ballot at this point. This was after Roe v. Wade's overturning, and Republicans, have been leading in the generic ballot up until pretty recently, and then it started to drop, and now we're at a point where Democrats are narrowly ahead in the 538 polling average. On Real Clear Politics, it's pretty much a statistical tie. Think both of those polling averages are pretty plausible. Biden's approval, his net approval is slightly worse right now. So you know well, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyways, at this point, it was pretty much almost Biden was disapproved of by almost six. His disapproval rating was nearly at 60% according to this polling average. But there has been some good news for Joe Biden, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that he has been able to ram through some good pieces of legislation for his party to help them, to help the American people and also to help the Democrats in the midterms, which it'll uh give them some legislation and accomplishments to to talk about, because the main issue with Biden is a lot of people say, well, what has Biden done? And to be fair, Joe Biden's done a lot, but there has been gridlock when it comes to Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema in the U.S. Senate. So, and most recently there have been the CHIPS Act, the Veterans Bill, or well, I don't believe it was the CHIPS Act. But there was also the Inflation Reduction Act, which was pretty much the finalized version of or the new version of Build Back Better, which Build Back Better had been torn to death by Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, and so there was basically a new uh, version of the bill passed. Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin were able to agree on that, and Biden recently has been able to get back into the 40s, and so Biden is quite unpopular. There's no saying that Trump had a better approval rating right at this point in his presidency than Joe Biden did. And, not trying to twist these numbers into something good. I mean, I guess I am sort of, because there is some, there's a bit of a silver lining is that, right now Biden is down, according to the 538 polling average, by, under 15%. It's, let me do the math here. I'm trying to think. It's a negative 13.6%. So it's not at all good for Joe Biden, but it certainly is not as terrible as it was just a little while ago. I think, and Democrats would rather have, Biden's approval rating down by 14 points than it down by 20. And, Democrats' accomplishments have helped them regain the lead in the generic ballot, according to 538. And Real Clear Politics is pretty much a tie right now. Real Clear Politics right now has Biden's approval rating, or his net approval at negative 15.1. And of course, this is more right leaning, so of course there's going to be like that. And we don't know the exact amount because there is a margin of error here, within these polls, but this is pretty much the polling average. And it does seem that Biden, is starting to do better in approval. I mean, there's no denying it. And the thing is that this isn't necessarily like that fluke that we saw back in December, because at that point, a day later, pretty much, or a couple days later, it pretty much went back to going, his approval rating went back to going down, and it pretty much found its place. Then it just crashed, like, about a month ago, and now it's starting to, it's making a gradual comeback, And I'm not trying to say that Biden will be approved of on election day 2022, because I don't think he will be. Crazier things have happened in American politics, but it takes a long time. Things in American politics do not change overnight. Biden's approval took 7 months to go down the drain, or his net approval. It took 7 months for it to go into the negatives, and he has been disapproved of for 12 months now, and he is one of the most unpopular presidents in American history, which would mean that the Democrats look like they're pretty much screwed, by the conventional wisdom. They were already, because they won the presidency in 2020, it was already, the conventional wisdom and the history would tell you the Republicans are going to make significant gains. And I think that there is some truth to that. I still think that the House is going to flip Republican. I don't see Democrats being able to hold on to the House. But the Senate, I think, is the outlier. I think that the Senate is not usually the best predictor of how midterm elections, um, you know, about how the red wave or the blue wave affects it. Because if you look at um, So let's go to 2010. So this was a red wave year. Republicans took back the House by a sizable margin. And in 2010, they were able to win back. Well, they weren't actually. Democrats were able to hold the Senate, but a lot of that had to do with the fact that there were a lot of bad candidates, or that there were a handful of bad candidates that kept the GOP from winning 4 more seats and gaining back the majority. And I mean, in 2008, yes, there was almost a 60, well, there technically was a 60-seat majority in between 2008 and 2010. The Republicans made a gain in Massachusetts in the special election. I know it sounds surprising, but it actually happened. Look it up. Um, and they ended up flipping 6 seats, seven if you include the one in Massachusetts. They flipped Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Arkansas, and North Dakota. Democrats held on to every other one of their seats. Republicans didn't lose any seats. But one of the reasons why the Republicans didn't, there are a couple reasons why Republicans didn't take back the Senate, and one of them was that um, it was so lopsided, and candidate quality really matters more in the Senate than it does in the House. If you look back at the House in 2008, I mean, just a sweeping majority, almost 260 seats for Democrats. Then Republicans just demolished them in 2010. But the candidate quality certainly had something to do with it, I would say, particularly in the states of Colorado, Nevada, and Delaware. In Delaware specifically, this was an open seat. This was Joe Biden's seat when he won election, or that he left behind after he resigned to become vice president under Obama. And Chris Coons was elected to succeed him. He was not the appointed senator, but he was elected in this cycle. And this was a winnable race because Republicans had the at-large congressional representative Mike Castle running for the seat, and he was defeated in the Republican primary by O'Donnell, who was more of a Tea Party candidate, and she was too extreme for Delaware standards. She'd gone up against Biden and lost big in 2008. So that was really what screwed them over in Delaware. In Colorado, Ken Buck was pretty much a far right candidate, and Michael Bennet proved himself to be a pretty formidable opponent and a pretty formidable incumbent, even though he had not, been elected to the seat. And in Nevada, the polls were pretty much off. Harry Reid was in a very vulnerable position, but he really lucked out with having Sharon Ingle as his opponent, and that really just destroyed Republicans' chances at taking back the Senate. A similar story in 2012 with candidates like Richard Murdoch and Todd Akin. You can pretty much see the similarities in a lot of these standards if you look more into it. Because I'm not going to take too much time to talk about each of these individual candidates, but there are some similarities that you can tell between the candidates now in 2022 that are deemed too far right for the moderates to propel over the finish line, and those in 2010 and 2012, especially in 2012, which was such a winnable year for the GOP. Also in the presidency, Mitt Romney was an okay candidate to take on Obama, but he certainly was not the best, and it was certainly shown in the final results. So I'm not saying that Biden is going to be approved of on November 8th of this year. He very well could be, but I really doubt it. There would have to be a massive surge in popularity, and I do expect Republicans to gain ground. But as we've seen before, especially in the Senate, candidate quality matters a lot more than the president's approval, and Democrats are holding their own in the generic ballot, which is for pretty much the average, do voters want average, the average Republican or average Democrat in Congress. So, I still expect Democrats to lose the House because of, how slim their majority is and how many good pickup opportunities the GOP has. But I think that it is, attainable for Democrats come 2024 to win back the House. I think that the Senate, this is really going to be Democrats' last chance to hold the Senate before 2024. I mean, obviously, because I think in 2024, there is, it's almost guaranteed that the GOP picks up seats. If you've, seen my video on how unfavorable the Senate map in 2024 is to the Democratic Party, um, you'll understand what I mean. If you haven't, I'll put a link to that, or I'll let you know where to find it. But anyways, this is good news for Joe Biden, not being down by 13, not necessarily being down by 14 points, but more so the climb in his approval. He's finally back to 40%. And unlike times before, it really looks like the Biden's approval is, starting to come back. I don't think the Biden's going to be approved of, come 2022. I think if he is to regain his, if he is to go back into the positives, I think it will have to be after the midterms. But we'll just have to wait and see. This is good news for Biden. This is good news for Democrats. This is not, set in stone. The Democrats are going to hold the House and the Senate because I don't think that's going to happen, especially in the House. Well, I mean, I think it may happen in the Senate, but the Senate's pretty much a toss-up. I have Democrats narrowly favored, but that could very well change in the coming months. So, yeah, that's really all I had to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, share, turn on notifications, check out subscribe to the channel and check out some more of my videos. Check out my main channel, Interactor127, which is a non-political channel if you want to go into, if you want to see me do some non-political stuff and, have a good time doing some other stuff. Of course, this is great too, but you know what I mean. Anyways, also check out my comrade, Growling Zeus 666, who I'm still badgering to get back on, doing, videos and stuff. I know it's been a long time, guys, but, it's more on him than me at this point, and I've, you know what I mean. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.